Welcome everybody to Selby College virtual open event. I'm Kirsty, I teach biology, and I'm joined this morning by three of my Year 2 A-level students. We've got Rowan, Joe and Amy. So we're just here to have a chat about experiences at college and what it's been like studying A-level biology. So good morning, you three.
Morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. So obviously you're well into your A-level studies and you're now, most of the way through the 2-year course that you're doing. How have you found studying biology, first of all? I've got to ask you that, haven't I, being your biology teacher?
It's just a bit, there's a lot of content. It's a big step up from GCSE, but it's interesting, which is good,
Yeah.
New stuff to learn.
Yeah. A big step up, Joe said. Would you two agree with that?
But it's not like overwhelming. It's not like it's so much of a step up that you're like, whoa, I could have never thought it would be this much. There's more content, and it's mostly more in depth with some of the stuff you'd already done at GCSE. So it's not like everything you do is a completely new concept.
It's the same stuff, just more of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you found it interesting though. You said there's lots of content, but fairly interesting on the whole. You glad you chose it? Any regrets? It's probably a dangerous question, isn't it?
Yeah,
I definitely feel like the people in your class as well, like, especially if you get along with them, like I know, for example, our class, we all get along really well, and it just makes it a bit easier sometimes to like learn the content if you're doing like group activities and stuff. And if you've got sort of like a good class like dynamic going on, it just makes it a little bit more just like fun, especially because the class sizes are quite like small, so you get like a lot of time to like talk with your teachers and stuff because there's not like that many people. Well, that's been the case anyway this year. So
it helps with the practicals because there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more practicals than there were at GCSE. So being able to work, like you work with the same people a lot like what's the word? Closer. Yeah. Doing the practicals. Forgot what the word was. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's nice, I think, isn't it? And that's probably one of our good things about Selby College, actually, that we're fairly small, aren't we? So the class sizes aren't huge. You get to know each other really well. You get to know your teachers quite well as well. And like Rowan says, there's opportunity always to chat with your teachers about things. And, you're not just a number in a sea of students. So that's just really nice to hear. And I'm glad you felt like that, because that's what we're about, really. That's what we try to achieve. So along with science then, I'm just going to, for the purposes of the audience, ask each one of you what you're studying. So Amy, what are you studying along with biology?
I'm also studying psychology and computer science, and during my first year I also studied core maths.
Core maths. So could you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, for core maths, it's not as difficult as full maths, and it's more of a focused on maths you'd need to know if you were doing other subjects. So like if you're doing just one science, usually they ask you to do core maths so that your skills in maths are maintained, because in biology there are obviously parts of it where you need to be able to do maths, but it's just not the commitment of having to do an entire fourth A level. It's just you just have 1 year. And personally for me, I found it a bit easier than what some of my friends who were doing full maths told me.
Yeah. But then the good thing about it though, Amy, because you've completed that course now, haven't you? You did it in year 1. It's the 1-year course, and you've got a qualification in core maths now, so you can put that on your UCAS application. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. That's really good. Yeah, and from the point of view of teaching biology, I know that those people who are doing just a single standalone science, such as biology on its own or chemistry on its own, would need to study core maths if they weren't studying A-level maths. If you're doing physics, of course, if you choose that option at A-level, you would need to choose maths. And Joe, I think you found that, didn't you? Because one of your initial subject choices was physics, but
it was,
you didn't didn't do the maths though, did you? Didn't want to do that?
No, so I was planning on doing physics as well as biology, but you had to do actual A-level maths to do that A-level, and I didn't want to do that. So I just did biology on its own and changed from physics.
Yes. And the other subjects that you study alongside biology?
I do history and law. And then in the first year I did sport as well.
And sport in the first year. Yeah, perfect. There is quite a crossover with sport qualification, where you're obviously doing about physiology and things like respiration and stuff. So, yeah. Rowan, how about you? About your subject choices?
Well, so I'm obviously studying biology, and I'm also doing psychology and chemistry.
So in terms of your subject choices then, obviously, you know, you're not necessarily doing pure biology with the rest of the sciences, you know, so this shows you that as a subject, biology is it sits quite well with lots of other subjects. So from the point of view of where your next steps are and where you're hoping to go and maybe what you're hoping to do at university, I just want to find out a little bit more about that. So Rowan, I'll start with you this time.
Yeah. So I was originally wanting to go to university to study biomedicine. And I did get a few offers from university, but there's so much scope for like what you're wanting to do. So if you used to be biology, there's just like so many different like options you can do if you're wanting to apply for university. A lot of them do sort of require you to do another science alongside that. Such, for example, like a lot of courses like you to do chemistry as well as biology. Just so you've got more experience sort of, I guess, with like the maths and the chemistry side of stuff. But now I'm debating whether to do an apprenticeship. So I'm trying to sort of have a look into apprenticeships with the NHS and go into more like healthcare, which is also another option for if you're doing like biology A-level. So yeah, I'm sort of having a scope around that at the moment, but there's like a massive variety of things you can do with biology A-level. So yeah.
It's good to know. I mean, obviously, like your interest is in sort of medical science and maybe, you know, the healthcare professions and that sort of thing. And clearly that's something that biology could lead to. But yes, not just necessarily university, perhaps apprenticeships as well. Brilliant. Thanks, Rowan. What about you, Amy? Where are you thinking of heading next and what are you hoping to do?
Well, originally, I was just planning on doing some sort of computing degree, but I actually found at some universities they do combined degrees. So what my first choice I've actually applied for is a computer science with forensic science. So it ties my biology into it.
Really fascinating stuff. And is that because you've sort of found some elements that you've been doing this year in biology a bit more sort of interesting from the point of view? Because I know we've been looking at sort of links to forensic science, haven't we, lately? Has that influenced you at all? Or it has?
Well, kind of, yeah. But I was also like, it gives you sort of a broader scope of things you could do with the degree. Because, say, for example, I just did a computing degree, basically, you're looking at computing jobs. But if I did one that's with forensic science, if I decided, actually, I prefer the forensic science bit, it would allow me to go on and further a career path in that area instead.
Yeah. Really interesting stuff. And where have you applied to, Amy, to do that?
That's Keele University. They've sent me, like, I've got an applicant open day on Saturday as well, and they've sent me like this little package, and it's got like fingerprinting stuff in. It's just it's really cool.
Cool.
Oh, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
It's certainly, and during lockdown, we all need a little bit of something different to keep us occupied, don't we? Brilliant. Oh, good luck with that. That sounds really fascinating. Joe, how about you? Because I mean, you're doing biology, although Amy's doing other science-related subjects. Psychology is very scientific in its way, isn't it? With the statistics you have to study and computing as well. But your biology, Joe, is really your only science, isn't it? You're doing two other non-related subjects to biology. So, where are your next steps? Where are you thinking of going?
So now I'm doing a really exciting history degree, or trying to anyway. Yeah. So it's not quite the same as forensic science, but yeah. I mean, biology is a good A level, isn't it? You know,
yes.
Come out with any A level in it, and whatever grade it is, people are still gonna, it's a good A level.
Yeah, it is. Well, what I think, you could say, along with history, obviously chemistry, maths, physics, these form the suite of what we call facilitating subjects. And so universities, in particular the Russell Group universities, the ones that are quite heavily into research, our red brick universities, very traditional ones, they are part of the Russell Group, which form the research partnerships. And they very much look for facilitating subjects at A level in order to further you on to whichever degree it is that you're interested in. So, absolutely, just because you've done biology A level, it doesn't mean that you've got to go a scientific route with your higher education or your next steps. It is a good A level, as Joe says, to have, and it is one of the facilitating subjects. So history degree, that will be interesting. And do you know what you want to do with that later on, or do you know which area of history you're going to specialize in?
Well, I've applied to actually I think 3 of them ancient history, which is like Romans and Greeks and all that, and then 2 of them are normal history,
Yeah.
not really old history, just old history. Yeah.
Where have you applied then, Joe?
My first choice is Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, excellent.
Yeah.
So, from the point of view of you guys, you've lived in Selby probably pretty much all your lives. You went to maybe primary school, certainly high school in Selby, and now you're looking, to the further reaches of the country, going to Edinburgh, thinking of Kiel, the idea of being able to go on and move on to new places, and not necessarily have to stay in Yorkshire. We love Yorkshire, but there are other counties out there, and it's just nice to know that you're prepared to go and explore and branch out a bit more. So that's really good to hear. So in terms of if you could sum up your experience of coming to college, in sort of a short sentence, what would you say?
It's definitely a big step up from high school, and you've got to be prepared to sort of definitely put the work in if you're wanting to get the grades that you want. Like you can't just slack off and think that they're going to come to you. You have got to put the work in, but it is really, really fun, and you get a lot more independence. So.
As Rowan said, it is a big step up. You are going to have to work harder, but you get more choice. So like you choose what you want to work on. So I found that it was a lot better for me because I wanted to do the work because it's more topics that you like, and then you get the freedom to, you're not in a school all day. You get breaks, you get longer breaks. You might have, entire afternoons off. So I think breaking it up and giving you more independence is a lot better.
It's challenging, but it's not boring.
No.
Like it's more work. Well, might be more work for you than you had to put in at GCSEs, but you shouldn't get bored. There's just you've got so much more independence that
yes.
You're not just sat there in one classroom facing a board all the time.
Yeah, and I think actually that's probably the take-home message, isn't it? Like independence, actually, that came from each one of you. This idea of being more independent, being more responsible for your learning at the same time, but having that step away from school, a feel of something that's a little bit more like what it's going to be if you go to university, or if you go into the workplace. So. Yeah, and I'm glad that you've had positive experiences, and you have been smashing students. So unfortunately, you're not going to be able to show people what you can do with regards to the exams this year. Normally, you would have 3 exams at the end of the 2 years, but you're not going to be able to show people what you're made of in that respect this year. But I know you'll go on to bigger and better things, all 3 of you. Having started life out, at Selby and one of the high schools. Just as an aside, because I know that people will be interested, what's your science background? Did you do separate sciences or did you do combined sciences at GCSE?
I did separate.
Yeah.
I did separate as well, but I would definitely say that if you're doing combined, it shouldn't limit sort of what you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to do sciences in A level, as long as you do put the work in to your GCSEs.
The key is that it's hard for everybody. As you said, you know, it's a step up, but you put the work in, you get the rewards. And that's what you're seeing now. So, yeah, brilliant.